if you are a man who has a demented, vindictive, evil baby moms out there, right?
Hmm.
Just to take it
Yeah,
on throw a curveball, then you know this tactic right here,
that's
right?
true.
It's
That's
true,
true.
isn't it? Isn't it
It is.
true? Yo,
It is.
yo, that right there was like the dunk of all dunks.
Yeah.
It's like you've been in here for 3.5 years. Your slogan is a new way forward, right? You want to turn a new page. What are
Yeah.
you turning a page from? From yourself? What up, Zoo?
What up, Ed? What's good?
Everything's good. Just got off a day of work, chilling at home,
No
ready
doubt.
for another react.
Let's do this. You got something for us?
Yeah, well, there's only one thing that we could react to that's timely and current, and that is the latest Kamala Harris interview on Fox News with
Uh-oh.
Brett Baer. It's interesting because I saw it live. I am, I guess you could say, critical of Kamala Harris. So I had my own interpretation of what was being said. And then the following day, everyone's dropping their videos. This was like 3 days ago, 4 days ago that this interview took place. And it's interesting to see how polarized the information that people receive is. So my mother is very pro Kamala Harris or Democrat. And on her side, she's getting told Kamala dunks on Trump and makes a case for why she's better than Trump, which is true. Um, but on my side, on my feed, I'm getting Kamala Harris has a disaster interview with Fox News and has no good answers to any of Brett Baer's questions. Which when I was watching it, I couldn't help but notice, and you'll see this when we put it on, that every time he would ask her one of those questions that everybody wants to hear the answer to, and that nobody has been asking her about her policy, what separates her from Biden, what her plans are for her first 100 days in office, what she plans to do about immigration, the economy, foreign policy. Um, she just her immediate response is Donald Trump did this. Donald Trump, and she refused to answer any of the questions directly the way they were asked. So, um, anyway, let's get into it, and
Mm.
it would be interesting to hear your take on it because you're so far removed from all
Yeah.
this, living in France and whatnot.
Madam Vice President, thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Brett.
You know, voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have, and you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you
now,
just a
which
number?
is,
Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett? Let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your
And-
Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
It's a
an
rough
immigration
estimate of
system
6 million people have been
needs to be-
released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question, I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret
How do they
the
know that?
decision to
All right, well, because there were murders, there were three that have been publicized heavily of you know young white women murdered by Venezuelan or Ecuadorian or wherever they're from, immigrants
Yeah,
who,
but not they don't know that it's those people.
yeah, they do. They do. Because
For
the
real?
people caught, yeah. I mean, this has been heavily publicized over here by the right, basically, to hold over the Biden administration, as to say, you failed at the border, and this is the result of you letting people in. And to be fair, the Biden administration has been very lax, and even the rhetoric before he got into office was that we need these immigrants and they have a right to pursue a better life in our country, and our country is built on immigration and yada yada, which is partly true, but you know these people have no identities. They come into this country, they are it's very lax. They're not held for any period of time to verify who they are, where they're from, what connections they have in this country, uh, and what their intentions are. So they're basically let in with a court date, sometimes out as far as 5 years, in the future. So it's like basically you're here for 5 years before you have a court date, and even at that court date, depending on what the legal climate is at that moment, um, there's no saying that you're going to be deported at that time, and there's no saying that any of these people are going to show up to their court date, depending on what their
Yeah.
intentions are. So the unfortunate, and there's been a lot of reporting on this. Basically, a lot of countries who have serious crime problems, gang problems, have gone and deported a lot of their people. Now, this doesn't account for all the people, but a good, so Venezuela, for example, had a devastating crime problem until the Biden administration or thereabouts, when they basically, due to economic strain on the country and policies in that country, they encouraged people to leave. And a lot of people, the people that left were their criminal population. So now, if you look at the crime stats in Venezuela, they now have very low crime because all the people that were involved in that lifestyle have left the country. Um, and there's obviously way more to it, and there's obviously a whole lot of people that came in that flood of immigrants who are not criminals and are genuinely seeking um, a better life in our country, or to basically benefit from what our country can offer as far as quality of life and opportunity. But a lot of the people that have come are people with a sordid past who you know
So let me get this straight. So people come in
yeah,
illegally and they're caught and detained, right?
some of
On
them a percentage of them are caught and have an interaction with border control, right?
right, and then detained.
Yeah,
But why are they wasting tax money to detain them? Why not just turn them away?
I guess it has to do with ethics and human rights, and you
But
can't
that's
just
bullshit. That's
well, if
crazy.
somebody is coming into this
What's
country.
unethical about
Yeah, well,
just
well,
turning
think
them
about it.
away?
I mean, I don't know. Playing devil's advocate, think if somebody genuinely is seeking asylum and they come to your border. Now, obviously, like this is all
But that's different though, because if they're seeking asylum, then they would file for asylum. That's
right,
different.
right, right. But a lot of people, everyone's filing for asylum. Everyone is filing for asylum, right?
But
Economic
if they do
asylum,
it legally, then there's no problem. Like the
right?
problem is
But
when
yeah,
they don't wait.
the problem is that there are so many people that we don't have the resources to process these people in any kind of timely manner. So because of that, instead of turning people away, they're
Uh,
in.
so they're trying to filter out the good ones, I see. Or
Well,
filter out the accepted, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a mess. Yeah, the amount of people, and it's also a matter of like, the word has been out, like, yo, it's a free for all at the border, yo. Now is the time to go. So anyone who was thinking about going, or who had, you know, you know, who needed a little bit of an incentive to come, now during the Biden administration, it's like, yo, green light, go. If you're gonna do it, now's the time. You know what I mean? And
Right.
and I'll tell you this, like, it's an opportunity to, even if you're working, making $15 an hour, that money compared to the money you're making in your country when you come
Yeah.
from a third world or developing country, um, that money is serious. And even if you're making $15 an hour, you're used to living on way less. And
Yeah,
that
but
$15,
that's what US was built on, though, is the fact that you could
the
make money
problem
here.
is, is that people came through legitimate channels of entry. You know what I mean? So there would be a legitimate port of entry. You come in, you declare, this is who I am, this is where I'm from, and this is my intention. And there was also, the process of becoming a citizen meant that you were assimilating into American culture. So, you know, now, I sound crazy right wing saying this, but it's just true. You know what I mean? If you really think about it, now you have all of these cultural enclaves in Europe too, in France, right? I know you can speak to this. You don't have people coming in learning French and you know, and matriculating into the French society. You have all these pockets of, like, kind of like a Chinatown, of all these different nations where they have their own little economy. They have they stick by their own culture, and they're not making an effort to assimilate into the bigger
Right.
society that they've immigrated to. So that's really what the difference is. Like, you had Germans, Italians, um, you know, Irish, all these people that would come here, right, through the wave of immigration in the late 18, early 1900s, who came here and, assimilated into American society. They went as far as
Yeah,
changing
but
the names and, and learning the language. Now you have people here you have people in New York who can completely function in New York from
yeah.
coming from other countries, and they don't even need to learn English, right?
Yeah, but this is the thing. Assimilation is kind of nonsense. Like assimilation, legal assimilation is okay, you have to know the language, you have to know the history of the country. It's like a test, whatever, right? But
Yeah.
that doesn't really mean anything. Like I think the point is that it's somebody willing to put in work to
Yes,
go through the
100%.
legal channels, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
the difference is, are you willing to put in work to go through the legal channels?
That's a big difference, though.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
but I mean, like,
I mean,
I don't know.
you keep your heritage, right? You keep your culture and your customs, but you're also adopting another culture on top of that. So if you're from India, you're an Indian American, you're not rejecting. I mean, and on the flip, there's plenty of reason to reject American culture, but you know, it's like, in order for a nation to be cohesive, everyone needs to be, everyone needs to be on board, and we all have to be working towards the same goal, right? And if you have factions of a nation that are not invested, financially and culturally and in all ways, materially invested in that culture, that society, then, you know the society fractures, right? And you have conflicting interests, right, within your society that end up leading
Yeah.
you, weakening you basically from inside. So if you have people in our country who have loyalty to their origin country, or their origin culture, then they're not going to be working in the interests of
That's
the
not
society as a
necessarily
whole.
true. You can keep loyalty to your country and still be a a productive citizen where you
Yeah, but
live.
you have to have some level of you know like you have to have some level of respect for the country that you're
Yeah, well, but
going.
that level for me is not really about language and knowing the history. Like personally, I still don't speak French fluently. I don't know shit about the history,
You pay
nor do
taxes.
I pay taxes,
Okay,
but
so that right there is
right,
you're
that's my point.
documented. They know you are there. They know you exist.
But for the
They know
first
you
10.
work, and you're a productive part of their society.
Right, but
You work.
that's my point. That's my
You pay
point is
into the
that's what
system.
matters. That's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
matters. Not the
100%.
language or knowing the history. You see what I
Yeah,
mean? So
I
their
totally see.
assessment of assimilation is bullshit. It's like, are you
Right.
gonna commit
All right, all
crimes?
right, all right, all
No.
right. So,
Are you gonna
yeah, no, no,
contribute to
no,
the
no. I hear you,
economy?
but all right, but peep it. You right? That let's talk about that paying into the system part. If you're coming here, right? Not only are you not documented, you're not paying taxes. And on the U.S. government side, a lot of the people that come here are not given the right to work, which is fucked up.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's fucked up on many levels because one, you have a limited amount of jobs. So you have all these people who are willing to work for a whole lot less than the people that are already here. So you're competing with people and that's a big problem for the
Yeah.
black communities here because a lot of them end up um, living in black communities
Yeah.
and
But
getting the same social services that a lot of lower class Americans rely on. You know what I mean? So but then they're not documented, they're not paying into the system, and they have a very low bar to meet in order to qualify for those services. And then they get more services, right?
yeah,
So
but
like if you look at go ahead.
I mean, you got to keep in mind in France, right? Even if you're illegal, you get full health care. You see what I mean?
Right.
So that's a big difference. Like, yes, if you're illegal in US, you don't get any social services, but even the legal,
No, if
citizen,
you no, but that's changed. That's one of the things that's changed is that now they get like how you can get an EBT card to buy
yeah,
groceries and stuff. They get credit cards with like pretty high balances every month, more money
illegals.
per month, yeah, than people that have lived here, right? Like there are examples, and I don't know how credible this is, but there's people like it's all like social media type documentation, like but somebody at a checkout line looking at the balance on somebody's receipt who's an illegal using one of these credit cards that they get from the government, and they got like a $14,000 balance on that shit. You know what I mean? That blows my mind. I don't know how accurate that is, but I know what is documented is that they're getting they're getting G's per month, that they can use not only on food, but they can use on other things as well. So it's like where the EBT card you can only use on food. You can't use it on like um, you can't use it on alcohol. You can't use it on this, that, the other. You can't use it on clothes. You can't use it on so many other things. It's strictly for food, right? Like groceries and stuff. Those restrictions don't exist, and whether or not that's just a result of them kind of expediting the process of getting these resources out to people and not being able to put those checks and balances in place. I don't know whether that's plausible or not, but I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I've seen too many examples of, and firsthand, like I work in a school where we have a lot of kids that are asylum seekers, quote unquote, you know, and they come into the school, they don't speak any English. Their families are living in luxury hotels, not like in like enviable conditions, but this is a big segment of our economic capital that's being diverted to accommodate these people. So whole hotels are being, and then the city government is paying the owners of the hotels monthly. So there's a little bit of like, cronyism going on behind the scenes of like, all right, my boy Al owns this hotel, so and it's not doing too well after the COVID. So we'll pay him off taxpayer dollars, like $200 a room per night to house these people for months and months and months and months and years on end. So it's like guaranteed income for the owners of these hotels. Taxpayer dollars are going to this, and meanwhile, we're cutting down on garbage pickup. We're cutting down on all these other services that New Yorkers rely on. After school programs and all kinds of different things. So it's putting a strain on the economy, and that's
I don't understand why is it so hard to just not let anyone in unless they've gone through the legal channels? Like,
well,
why do you have to like let everyone in hopes to get a few good ones? Why not just say, you know what? No one is allowed in, no one gets detained, everyone gets turned away, and go through the legal channels. Like, you see what I mean? I don't understand why.
I mean, why I think it might be hard is just because there's so much border real estate to cover. So you're not going to come into contact with everyone that tries to make it over. A lot of people that make it over are going to just disappear into the desert.
Fine, but those are exceptions. I'm talking about
no,
the people.
I think it's like 50% of the people have no interaction with border control, right? And then another 50% get wrangled up and get put through this expedited process and then released into the country. And then there's probably a smaller segment that gets turned back and sent back to their origin country.
But I'm talking about the 50% of the people. The 50% who don't get caught, that's a different problem. But the ones who do get caught, you're saying a percentage of them are turned away and a percentage are let in. Why? How do they know who to let in?
I have no idea. But you know what? You know what the thing is, though? Why it makes Biden and Harris look stupid? Because the dude that was villainized for trying to lock this down and would have done it.
Trump.
Remember the slogan? Build the wall. Build the wall. Build
Remember the Muslim ban?
Yeah. No. I mean, and that was following legitimate threats from these countries. So it wasn't a Muslim ban, right?
It was a Muslim ban.
No. It was a ban from certain Muslim countries. So even if you were, if you're Sweden coming from this Muslim country, if you're Swedish coming from this, you're not getting in. You got to go to a different country first and come in through this.
Right.
So it's not they called it a Muslim ban on the news because they hate this motherfucker, but it's really talking about people from this. We're not allowing people to come, non-U.S. citizens, to fly in from this country, that country, and that country.
But that's just as bad as it being like if we know that not everyone in a certain country is bad, right? Then why is everyone in that country being penalized? I'm saying that's not. It wasn't
because we don't have the resources to filter through.
Right, but we don't have the resources for anyone. So why choose certain countries?
No.
Just because someone from that country committed a crime.
We have the resources we have, and the resources we have should determine the quota on how many people, period, from anywhere are allowed to come into this country. If we don't have the resources to vet you properly and verify that you are going to be a productive part of our society, member of our society, then we can't accommodate you. So sorry. You can get a visa, you can come visit, but you got to go,
Right, but my point is in the Muslim country ban, why is it worse for someone from that country than someone from Venezuela? Like, that's my point. Why do you pinpoint certain countries
because of events that were taking place at the time. That was a reaction to, I forget exactly what, but there were certain things going on in those countries. I mean, that made it, there were, viable threats that we were like, all right, well, we're not bringing people in from these countries. And it's not like we're the only ones doing this shit. Like just recently, the Dominican Republic banned people from Venezuela, you know, from coming to Dominican Republic. I just happen to know about that, and it goes on everywhere, and it doesn't always have to do with terrorism. Sometimes it has to do with economics. Sometimes it has to do with just some kind of a diplomatic dispute between the two countries. So as a punitive action, like kind of like a sanction or a tariff, we're like, yo, y'all people can't come over here.
Yeah. Anyway, I just come back to the question of why, if there's 50% of the people that get caught trying to cross illegally,
that's just a random number. Yeah, I don't know what it
is.
But
fine. If a certain percentage of them get caught, why are they detained and then wasting taxpayers' dollars? Why not just send everyone back and say go through the legal channels? I don't get it.
Well, in order to do that, you would need some kind of physical barrier that prevented them from coming in. Because as it is now,
no, we're talking about the ones who got caught. The ones who got caught.
Yeah. No. I mean, yeah, but that's on this administration for the decisions, the policies that they put into place.
No, but has there ever been an administration that turns everyone away and tells them to go through the legal channels that you know
of? Completely, or no, I think during the Trump administration, but he was heavily demonized for that. The whole thing is like, he's separating from fathers from kids, because there is international law regarding this. So like if you have a 3-year-old kid in the company of a 35-year-old man, right, that claims that he's the father of that kid, right? Yeah. But you don't know whether that's the father or that's just some dude that kidnapped the kid and is going to sell the kid once he gets across the border. You don't know what it is. You put the kid in a certain type of facility, and you either deport the father, or you put the father in a different type of facility, right? Because you can't put kids with grown-ups in the same kind of detention, right? So so that was seen as like, oh, he's separating kids from their parents.
But again, you're not getting my question. My question is, why not turn everyone away who gets caught?
Yeah, I mean,
Trump didn't do that. He was detaining people and separating them. I'm talking about everyone who gets caught gets turned away.
I honestly don't have an answer for that. I think yeah, before they even make it through, a lot of people are turned away if they're attempting to get through.
Who's deciding who gets turned away and who doesn't? That's my question.
I think it probably comes down to the discretion of the border agency.
See, that's crazy. There. It just begs for corruption, like and unfairness.
I don't know. Yeah, right. But who are you worried about being fair to illegal immigrants? Or
no? I'm worried about. For me, the most important is the legal U.S. people there. They need to. That's the whole thing about wars. Is like, forget other countries right now. Get out of their business. Fix the problems in America. Fix all this.
Yeah, you're sounding really.
So don't let anyone in until America is better and in a position to let them in.
You sound like you're voting for Trump right now. Yeah, 100%.
Nah, but for me, it's not I don't see any difference between either side, because they're both letting people in. Even you said there's no administration who's turning everyone away.
No, I don't know the details, but I know that the border was that if you look at the number of people that were allowed to come in, it is skyrocketed over the last 3.5 years. During the Trump administration, it was the lowest. I don't think it's like trying to stop, a leak. You can patch it up. You're not going to stop it, but you can get it to a drip versus like an open flow of water. You know what I mean? Right. So I think a lot more effort was put into stopping people, to the point of putting up a wall that would have been completed by now had the Biden administration not stopped it, because that's what he promised to do. Like, because it was so politicized, the idea of putting up a wall on the southern border of our country to prevent illegal immigrants from coming in was thought of as xenophobic and racist, and it was portrayed like, like this is crazy, like this is, Trump being a racist and being a xenophobe, when realistically he's protecting the our sovereignty. Like, like if you have people trying to come into your apartment and sleep in your bed, you should at least be able to, decide who comes in and who doesn't. Be like, yo, you smell like ass crack, you got, fat ass and big titties, you can come in, but ass crack, you gotta leave. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, like legit. It's like you should be able to decide at least, right? And you should be able to say like, yo, no one's coming in. I want to fucking, walk around butt naked and fucking smell my farts.
But that's my point. That's my point. No one should be coming in unless they've gone through legal channels. Like,
Yes.
I don't understand. It's so simple to me. Like, turn everyone away unless they've done it legally. There's
right.
legal
The
process.
problem is that literally the border is being flooded. So we don't have the resources at the legal channels to process the number of people that are coming in. And then you have like a humanitarian crisis where people are claiming that they need asylum, and some of them legit do, but they don't all. You know what I mean?
That's one of my problems with US is like everything's a humanitarian crisis. Like, come on, we have to fix our own national issues.
Yeah, I mean, everything's got to be, because we live on a planet with humans on it. Like, like we're humans, so every crisis is a humanitarian crisis on some level. It's an evil world, man. Like, like that, and that's what people don't want to get come to terms with. It's like, yo, we live in a world that is brutal, right? And if we have a little sanctity in our homeland, a little compared to the rest of the world, whether we have a better quality of life, more opportunities, despite all of our problems, and other people want to come where we're at. Like, if you live on a piece of property that has green grass and nice garden, and your neighbor lives in like a barren wasteland, they're going to want to come over and pick your strawberries and
are you going to let them? So you're saying they should come in?
No, they're going to want to come in. But the thing is, if they come in and eat all your produce, everything that then you're not going to have anything to feed your kids. So you can offer them a certain amount of aid. Be like, yo, I know you struggling right now. Here's some veggies to hold you down, but you can't have everything I have. And if I'm in a point where I don't have enough to feed my family, I gotta cut the faucet. I gotta cut it off. You know what I mean? And only I have the right to determine when is enough. You may look at me and be like, yo, you have plenty, you have enough. But I'm saying, like, no, I don't, because not only do I need to feed them now, I need to feed them all winter. And when and what if there's no rain next season? I gotta think ahead. I gotta have not only enough for me now, but I have to have a stockpile.
I mean, I agree with you. My question is, do you feel a responsibility to help others when your life could be better? Like, do you feel like you would be inhumane to say no to people?
I feel like me personally, it doesn't matter, right? I feel like you can't force me to. Like, I'll help, right? I have a bleeding heart when I see someone in need, someone who's like, yo, and maybe they're too prideful to even ask, but I recognize that there's a disparity between what I have and what they have, right? I naturally want to help them, but but that has to be on me. It can't be like someone twisting my arm, forcing me to do it. You know what I mean? And and that's just simply what it comes down to. And it's a very simple concept. It's like everyone has private property, right? Or something that is their domain, where that so you have your apartment or your house or your land or whatever. Someone else wants to come on your land and use your resources.
Yeah,
you have a right to turn them away. You know what I mean?
I get it.
And no one should be able to tell you.
The same thing happened here during the Ukraine war. They were letting all these Ukrainians into France and giving them the limited spaces in the healthcare in the childcare system. So
Right.
people like French people who were born here were being turned away from childcare, free
Right.
childcare,
You've gone
and
too far.
Ukrainians would be given it, you know?
Yeah.
But
You've
I
gone
don't
too
know. I just think that for me, I stand strong on it's they're overcomplicating it by trying to decide who should be let in and who shouldn't. There it's simple. Like go through legal channels or the answer is no.
Yeah.
I don't get
I
it.
feel you.
Terminate remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically
All right.
hours.
So I don't know if you heard that, but he's saying you made the decision to terminate remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration, right? So that basically is what you're talking about. Like, yo, stay where you are. Don't come over here. You know what I mean? You go through the border crossings and you declare your intent to for a visa, and you go through the proper channels, you know? So they
So that's
terminated
good.
that. No, but they terminated that policy at the beginning of her.
Oh,
So her answer is at the beginning of my administration, let's see, within hours of, let's see.
Hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called
And-
the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021. It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the. Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please? But you have to let me finish.
You had the
please.
White House and the House and the Senate,
I'm
and they
in the
didn't
middle
bring up
of
that bill.
responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Yes.
I can't lie. Like, after seeing her go on so many interviews where it's just an opportunity for her to filibuster, take one question and just rant and go on meandering. You know, when I was a kid, I grew up in a middle class family, and my mother raised two daughters, and this that. Yo, to see her get pushback, it's kind of like, yo, like I can't front like this. This shit just has me like, oh, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
but he does need to let her speak. Like, come on, don't interrupt her like that.
you know what it is that she's not directly answering the questions, right? Just
She's
hear
trying
me out.
to.
All right, okay. Just let's keep going.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
Six Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a decision.
But you peep how she's just going on and on. She's trying to eat up the time because she knows it's a 20-minute interview.
Yeah.
Let me just run and, speak, drop all these little talking points that make me look good and not let you come with any counter to what I'm saying. So that's why she has the run-on sentences, and she's just going on and on. She's not giving any pause. Her whole thing is like it's a filibuster. She's like, let me just keep talking. Let me just run down the clock. It's like, like in basketball, you just kind of like go extra slow. You pass the ball around the perimeter. She's just trying to eat up the clock, and she's just going down a list of like, I did this and we did that without giving him the opportunity. But wait, that when you did that this was going on, and what about this, and like so it sounds good. Anyone could do that, bro. Like and this is my appeal on a personal level, and this is fucked up to say, but it's not even fucked up to say. If you are a man who has a demented, vindictive, evil baby moms out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just to take it on throw a curveball, then this tactic right here.
That's
Right?
true.
It's
That's
true,
true.
isn't it? Isn't it
It
true?
is.
Yo.
It is.
So this tactic. And when
that's such a good point. Oh my God.
So you're just not gonna let me talk, right? You're just gonna keep going and going.
Not only that, but the more she goes, personal experience, the more she goes on, the less I want to respond. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm
But
just like, yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, and she knows that what she's saying is bullshit, but she's not talking to you. She's talking to anybody who might be listening, right? She's trying to make her case and protect her reputation, and she's appealing to the court of public opinion. She's not talking to the people who actually know what's what. She's talking to all the casual bystanders who are just picking this up, on episode 5. Like they don't know what happened before in episode 1, 2, 3, and 4. They're just like they're like the come lately types who are just like, oh, that sounds fucked up. Like oh, that yeah, I'm on her side. Nah, motherfucker, you don't know all the layers that led up to this, and now she's talking as if none of that took place. It's like, complete delusion and complete spin on reality in order to win people's fucking, have all these people coming and caping for her, and this is the tactic that that she's using, and that has been used against her opponent for like 8 years. And like, it took me a minute to catch on to it, but I'm like, yo, it's like, it's fake news, motherfucker. It's fake news. Like, that's really all I could say. And I've been the victim of this in my own personal life. So I am, and you know why black men ain't fucking with her? Because black men have been the victim of this shit, right? Yo, and I think that right there is that's maybe it's subconscious, but we recognize that shit when we see it. We hate that shit. You're gonna come with that fucking cackle and that fucking boss bitch mentality. Like, yo, get out of here with that shit. I'm not dealing with that. I see through you. It's bullshit, and it's bullshit. But you just not gonna break character. You're gonna just keep going and keep going and keep going. And the minute I try to speak, you're just gonna up the volume and keep running over. So like, yo,
honestly, if I hadn't gone through that myself, I wouldn't recognize how good of a point that is. That's a good ass point. It's a good ass point.
Clip that shit, motherfucker. Clip that.
Word.
All right, continue.
Discussion that the American people want to have, and what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you,
but actually is focused on fixing it.
6 Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the 6 Democrats. But more importantly, back to the original premise, Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Brett,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There is no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents.
Those 3 girls were killed more than 9 months ago. So how fucking backwards is what she's saying? She's like, yeah, that's tragic. She's not addressing the fact that, yeah, your policies allowed that shit to happen by letting these people flood into the country. She's not addressing that. She's just saying, yeah, but if Donald Trump hadn't blocked this bill 9 months ago, that we would have 9 months of,
But what do you mean Donald Trump blocked the bill? He wasn't in.
Yeah, he didn't block the bill. He didn't block the bill. The bill was blocked in Congress, but Donald Trump spoke about the bill because the bill is not just about border. It was about money for Ukraine, about money for, Israel, about it was one of those bills with all these little other provisions snuck into it. So it was like, it's called the border bill, whatever the fuck it's called, but it's also about funding a bunch of foreign wars. You know what I mean? So I don't know whether on Truth Social or on Twitter or wherever the fuck Donald Trump made a comment about it, and then supposedly that influenced all of the Republicans in Congress to vote against it, which is bullshit. This is another fucking media narrative that's spun to put the onus on Donald Trump, when in my opinion and in my judgment, not that I know all the details and all the facts, but even if it is true, motherfucker, we're talking about 3.5 years of a policy, and you're going back 9 months. But yeah, but when it was too little and too late, we tried to pass this bill, and in the bill there was all this other shit that had nothing to do with the bill. Of the trillions of dollars or the billions of dollars that we were going to put into this bill, maybe 20% of it was going to go to the border, and that 20% was only going to be used to help house immigrants who were coming in. But the 80% of the bill was going to go to Ukraine. It was going to go to all these other things. You know what I mean? This is taxpayer money. So that's the reality of it. And that's what she's not going to say. You know what I mean? And there's no time to parse out all these little details, because he's trying to keep it moving and she's trying to run the clock. You know what I mean?
Agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock, trying to hold it all together.
Madam Vice President.
To ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Brett.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Jocelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early.
Think about what it takes to have that queued up like that. And then the skill to segue into it so smooth. It's like he's walking her down the path and he drops that on her. That I got to give him props for that.
That's not him though. That's the producers.
No. I feel you, but he's the one who's in the conversation and knows that the clip is there, and he's leading her into it, walking her into that clip, and then look at her face right now, just like she got smacked upside her head.
days. So do you owe them an apology is what
I
I'm
will
saying.
tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I'm so sorry for her loss. Sincerely.
What else can you say?
But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you want to answer
in all
her?
fairness, I told you, I
Let's talk
feel
about Donald Trump.
awful for what she and her family have experienced.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
Whatever you can send to the campaign, we put it into commercials. We're doing a lot of commercials and they're really good. Whatever you could send, please send. And you have the
Nice
link.
of you, yeah.
But you're very special people. We have to win the election. It's the biggest election of our time.
All right.
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure you probably, I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that's going to get fixed, Brett.
Well,
that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question.
But
There were
that's how the
90
system
plus
works.
executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talk to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it. They want support. They want support, and that's what that border security bill would have done. These guys down at the border, these men and women, they're working hard. They're working around the clock. I get it.
Yeah, but they said you were a failure. Why did they say that? Answer the question. Why did they say that? You get it? Let's talk. Let's see if she drops Donald Trump. But let's talk about Donald Trump.
Wait, hold on.
There's a lot of people that look.
If what you were saying was true,
yeah,
meaning that this bill was only 20% with border stuffed in with a lot of other stuff, why doesn't he bring that up? Because that would shut her up. Right?
That's a great question. I mean, I hope it's not because I'm wrong. I mean, I don't think I. But we can look into that 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Look back at what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
So decriminalizing border crossings, like you said in 2019.
I do not believe in decriminalizing border crossings, and I've not done that as vice president. I will not do that as president.
So these are evolutions that you've had.
But let's be very clear. I'm the only person who's running for president who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations, from the Sinaloa cartel to the Guadalajara cartel, to people who have trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career going after people who present a threat to the safety of the American people and cross our border with the intent of doing us harm and cross our border illegally. And I will do that work as vice president. I take that work quite seriously.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania, are inundated with commercials and ads. They just want it to stop because it's every commercial. But many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery. For prisoners. For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Yo, what do you think about that? I mean, just out of curiosity, like, what's your opinion on that? So, like, you know, you're locked up for some shit. You decide, I'm a woman, and I want to get surgery. I'm locked up, but I want to get surgery to turn me from a man to a woman.
And you should pay for it.
Yeah, and then taxpayers should pay for it.
I mean, honestly, this whole gender thing in US is way out of control. I think
It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's
now
not
my
happening
thing,
anywhere else.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is that there are inmates who fuck the surgery. They're like, yo, I identify as a woman. Put me in the women's prison, right?
And they do
I
it.
still got my twig and berries and all that shit. You know what I mean? And they get put into the women's prison.
No, they
Yeah,
do.
yo. Yeah, son. Yo, there are cases, yes, of
That's crazy.
male inmates who identify as women and get put into a woman's prison. Now, if you were locked up, would you rather be in the men's prison or the women's prison?
Either way, that's out of control, yo. That just shows you how out of bounds US is with gender.
I would want to be in the women's prison without the surgery. I mean, don't fucking cut my shit off, but put me in there, yo. Like, yo,
they give way too much leeway to gender identification.
Yeah, I mean, my chances are way better. I mean, maybe not, because there's some crazy bitches in like state prison, but I would assume that I would probably, you know, you'd probably be busting cheeks either way, but I'd be busting the cheeks I want to bust in the women's prison.
Yo, you're clowning, but to be serious, like, it's the same thing for me as what I was saying about immigration. It's like, okay, of course there's exceptions of people who were, you know, wrongfully incarcerated. That's a separate topic. Yeah. But for the people in jail, right? It's like, don't tell me what you want. I don't care what you want, yo.
Yes, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yo, we've lost the ability to say no. Like, we can't say no more. No is not off the table because everyone has some kind of, like, you know, oh, well, it's part of my, you know, I feel trauma and it's my lived experience. And, you know, when do we get to say no? And, you know who says no?
Trump.
No. I mean, all right, maybe, yeah. But, yo, you know who says no? Historically, right? Traditionally, like, you know, it's the job of men to say no, right? If you have a parent, a father and a mother, the one who says no is the father. That's like his only job is to say no. You know what I mean? Like, you know, yo, go ask your father, right? Mom, I want to do it. Yeah, go ask your father. Oh, when your father gets home, right? That's gone. We've wiped that away. We've, like, gotten rid of that. We've completely revoked that whole aspect of masculinity in our society. And we have invited chaos, you know, in its place, because now there's no one saying no. Mommy, I'm a cat. I'm a pussy cat. I need a litter box. Who the fuck is saying no? You know, mommy, I wanna download TikTok. You know what I mean? I'm 10. I want TikTok. Who's saying no?
Nobody. But that's arguable though, because I've heard a lot of women say, "Oh, I'm always the bad guy and you're the fun parent," you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a role.
Reversal.
It's like you're muddling the roles. You know what I mean? And there is like room for flexibility within that, because yeah, you can be like a fun parent when it's appropriate, but being completely permissive to everything, and forget about parenting, just everything in society, like everything's okay, everything is your choice, like live your truth, you know what I mean? And it's like, no, you know what I mean, that shit is aberrant, that that's not the way it's supposed to be. No, you know what I mean, like, this is wrong, you know what I mean, like, we ain't doing this, you know what I mean? There's no one saying that, and as a society we've become completely permissive to every single walk of life, which is, arguable. Like, I mean, this is a whole other topic, right?
Yeah.
Like, and probably like territory that we probably don't want to venture.
Nah, I think we want to get into everything, and
Yeah, yeah.
I think
But
it's okay to be honest about how we feel.
yeah, yeah, no, no, no. I mean, I guess it's the language we use in trying to express our opinions that is more important. But
Nah, be honest. Be
no, no,
honest.
no. I mean, no, we'll get flagged if we say certain things.
Oh, right.
We will get flagged. Then they won't let that shit up. But like, even having this text on the screen right now. But yeah, but
Nah, but there's on YouTube. It's kind of fucked up because there's this podcast I watch, Your Mom's House, and they
I
found
watch that
this
shit.
YouTuber, this little gay kid who shaved his asshole, and they kept it up on YouTube because
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
educated.
yeah. And then the dude that talks about the little gay kid shaving his asshole
Gets
is
flagged.
flagged. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how fucked up it is. Because you can't there's no room for criticism. You cannot criticize another
yeah.
person for you know venturing into those areas, because you're then bullying, you're a bigot, you're all these other things. You can't even question, like, the documentary that we need to do. Like, we need to do one on this. There's a documentary called "What Is a Woman?" Have you heard of that?
No.
And there's another one. The same dude has a new one that's in theaters now called "Am I Racist?" I really want to do that when it becomes available, or if we can get some good clips of it, because he basically, you know, it's just basically poking holes in this whole, woke kind of, mind virus that has taken over our society.
Yeah.
And I know it exists out in France to some extent, but it's not like it is here.
Yeah. But again, I mean, I think that these issues are bigger, they're nuanced, but when it comes to certain things like jail, or, a certain age, like if you're not 18, you're not
Yeah,
allowed to change your gender. If you're
yeah.
in
You can't get a
jail, you're not allowed.
tattoo. You can't cut off
Right.
your. Yeah,
Right. So it's like those things for me are cut and dry.
I feel you.
Yes, it's like, where do we draw the line? That's where we draw the line.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not that hard,
yeah. And that's a very masculine role to take, where you're the one that's drawing the line in the sand, and, like, just to bring it back, like, saying no. You know what I mean?
But
Um,
it's not even that deep. Like, there's laws. Like, just
yeah,
follow the laws,
yeah,
Don't try to change the law. I mean, some laws maybe need changing, but for now, just follow the law. Wait until that law gets changed in the Supreme Court, or whatever the proper channels are to change a law based on, judges and evidence and trials and all this. Until that law is changed, there's a law in place for a reason. And the answer is no. If you're in jail, you don't get to change your gender. Like, that's simple.
I'm with you. All right, press
All
the
right,
play.
go ahead.
So, are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law. And it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing, stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender.
How is it a necessity?
I can't imagine how. I can imagine how abortion would be in this. Oh, that's a word you shouldn't say. I can imagine how a baby deletion could be a medical necessity, but I can't imagine how a gender affirming surgery would be a medical necessity.
That's what I'm saying. She said based on medical necessity, I would allow it. But
yeah, I would love to know under what circumstances.
It's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no answer for it.
Under transition,
well,
surgeries
you know what? You got to take responsible for what happened
presidency.
In your administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in his presidency.
It's in black and white.
Would you still?
Did you see that little face that she made? That little face.
Let's see.
I'm so familiar with that face. It repulses me. I'm not fucking with this woman.
No gender transition.
Well,
surgeries
you know what? You got to take responsible for what
happened
happened in your administration.
Yeah, no surgeries.
Yeah, right there. You saw that?
Little smile.
You see that face? That little smug ass, like, yo, nah, I ain't fucking with this woman, yo. Yeah. I ain't fucking with her, yo. You should fucking cast a ballot from overseas, bro. You're still a citizen. Come on, vote for my dude, yo. We need all the votes we can get. You with me?
Nah.
Oh man.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment?
I will follow the law, just as I think Donald Trump would say he did.
You would have a say as president.
Like I said, I think it's real. He spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote. And again, his policy was no different. Look at where we are, though.
They say
on plans for the American people, I'm offering a plan to deal with affordable housing. I'm offering a plan to deal with what we need to do to strengthen small businesses, which are the backbone of America's economy. I am offering a plan that is about taking care of young parents and giving them the support they need. My plans for the economy will strengthen the economy, as have been reviewed by 16 Nobel laureates, Goldman Sachs, Moody's, and recently the Wall Street Journal, which have all studied our plans and have indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy. His would make them weaker, would ignite inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as president of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future and a plan that is sound and will strengthen our country. My plan for the economy does exactly that. His plan would be, again, to give tax cuts to billionaires.
Yo, she needs to stop with these like tag along sentences. Like, there's no gap for anyone to come in. I can't even pause the video in between her sentences because she just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going. It's like, it's fucking sickening. Yo.
And notice how she completely dodged the question. Like the question
was everyone. It's some kind of like.
It was about the transgender thing, and she got caught out there, so she just switched it to the economy.
Word. All right, let's see. Let's see if he can squeeze something in there.
Corporations in our country and blow up our deficit.
It's interesting you said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I noticed.
And so that would be one change in terms of.
What a stupid response, yo. Yo, all right, come on, yo.
But also, I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
So you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes in to office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership. I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago. And
I'm starting to get sickened also, because it's exactly like you said. It's like, when you know you're caught out there, you go to something that you think you can win, Like I've been through this before too, when it's like, when you're clearly wrong, you quickly turn it into something that you think you can be right about,
Yo, I'm tagging this woman. This woman is America's baby mom.
Yeah.
Yo,
definitely.
America's evil baby mama. That's basically what she is. Look at her face right there, yo. I think, it's like this woman is has not answered a fucking thing.
Not a single thing.
Makes herself sound as good as possible. And if you really dial into what she's saying, she's not saying nothing.
Yeah.
I would take ideas from this person. That I would bring my lived experience into the office, and I've never, but so she's saying I haven't spent my life, working in politics. Same with Donald Trump, yo. You know what I mean? All right. But then every opportunity she gets, she's trying to dunk on Donald Trump when he's asking her questions about her. You know what I mean? You can't say nothing about yourself that's of any credibility. All you could do is dunk on your opponent, which is, it says a lot, without saying, anything, you're saying a whole fucking lot,
Yeah. Yeah, because she's still not saying about anything different that she would do. And I think it goes back to what you were saying before about her being a puppet for the Democratic or whoever powers, because I think she won't do anything different than Biden, and is afraid to get into the details to say that,
100%. Do you see this woman sitting across from Putin, from Mao? I mean, not Mao. From who's the leader of China right now?
G.
Right? G.
Yeah,
something like that. But you see her sitting across from, right? You see her sitting across from any of these people and being able to run this game on them. Like, it's not gonna work. But the reality of it is, she's not gonna need to, because she's not gonna be the one who's negotiating with these people. You know what I mean? She's a figurehead for some nebulous entity or interest that is really calling the shots. You know what I mean? And just
go ahead.
No. I mean, you can't look at her and have any confidence in her ability to, to represent our country on the world stage, basically,
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel that way about Trump also. I feel like he could maybe have those conversations and maybe, hold his own in those conversations. But the unfortunate thing is that we don't really know where either of them stand on anything because they're so busy trying to belittle each other. It's more of an identity thing. It's like he's this, I'm this, but where do either of them stand on any of the important
I mean,
issues? Like,
I think Trump has stated where he stands, and he's also been there, done that. He has met with like Kim Jong Un. He has stepped foot in North Korea, first president to do so in I don't know how many decades. He has, you know, he has presided over a booming economy with low gas prices, low taxes. He has presided over a military that has not engaged in any new wars. He has confronted the border issue. He's done all these things, and while he was doing all these things, that she's now busy saying, "Yeah, I would do it better. I would do it better." What got them in power in the first place, her and Biden, was trashing him doing the same things that they're claiming they're going to do now. You know what I mean? Oh, no more, criminalizing people just seeking a better life in our country. And, everything that Trump did and said he wanted to do and actually went out and did, he was dogged out for. And that was their ticket. The Biden Harris ticket was dogging him out for doing the same things that they're now saying, yeah, this is what we want to do now. You know what I mean? But that she's saying, I'm gonna, be firmer on the border, and I'm gonna do this. Everything that she's claiming to do is stuff that she spoke against Trump doing. You know what I mean? Like it's some bullshit right here. But anyway, continue.
And the business sector and others who can contribute to the decisions that I make about, for example, my plan for increasing the supply of housing in America and bringing down the cost of housing, addressing the issue of small businesses, which is about working with the private sector to bring more capital and access to capital to our small business leaders, including my plan for a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and for small businesses, extending the tax deduction from $5,000 to $50,000.
Yo, what do you think would happen if you handed out $25,000 to first-time house buyers to buy their first house? Right? When you go to buy your house, right, and the seller of the house or the person who's going to give you the mortgage knows you have 25 free dollars, 25 more dollars, what's going to happen to the price of that house?
It's gonna go up by 25.
Yeah, right. Just like the price of everything when they started giving out free money during the pandemic, the price of everything went up. It's inflation. That's going to So
inflation.
you're talking about making it more accessible to people. What that really does is it drives the prices up higher. You know what I mean? Because if you're giving everyone $25,000, you know what I mean, to buy something,
It's a net zero game.
yeah. Like how do you, how is that not apparent to people? You know what I mean?
You know what they should do? They should do what France is doing, which is giving out zero interest loans. Like that's what's enabling me to buy an apartment is a zero interest loan. And that doesn't cause inflation. It just takes some of the responsibility on the government to,
Yeah, no one's giving out no zero interest loans, because that's like like that right there that's powerful. Like I mean that's a real, if I can borrow money and not have to pay a interest on that shit or pay a debt with interest, it's like, yeah, I mean that gives people a lot more
But it's not just borrowing money. It's to buy a home. Like cuz that it's not like just, oh, I want to buy an Xbox. Let me get,
No.
zero.
I feel you. Yeah. I mean, there's so many conflicting interests here because meanwhile we have, during the pandemic, that's when the real estate fucking problem started, where the price of real estate skyrocketed because everybody wanted to
Nah,
move
it
out of the
happened it happened before that. Remember that?
no. Yeah. No, the 2008 housing crisis. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we recovered from that, right? The prices of real estate skyrocketed during the pandemic. First, the prices went down, and then they skyrocketed because there was a mass exodus from urban areas, and you had the whole work from home thing, right? Where remote work was so much more prevalent, so many more people were able to work remotely. So people were like, why the fuck am I paying high rent in the city when I can move out to the country or move to a different country or move, what I mean? If I live in LA and I'm on lockdown and I can't do shit and I'm being mandated to, I can move to a red state. I can live in the country. I can live on a farm and I can do the same work I'm doing now from there. You know what I mean? So it gave people, incentive to move. So all these people flooding from urban areas, trying to go more rural, right? And buy houses ran the price up. And at the same time, you have all these huge banks, like BlackRock and Vanguard, and are buying up residential real estate at unprecedented levels, and then renting those properties out to people. You know what I mean? So there's a supply and demand issue. You know what I mean? As far as I understand it, you know what I mean? But that understanding is limited. I'll be the first to admit that shit. All right, resuming.
Heard a lot about those plans in recent days. Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years. So what are you turning the page from?
Yo, that right there was like the dunk of all dunks.
Yeah.
It's like, you've been in here for 3.5 years. Your slogan is a new way forward, right? You want to turn a new page.
Yeah.
What are you turning a page from? From yourself? Like,
Yeah.
that makes no sense. So it's like you're dunking on Trump when you've been in there for 3.5 years. Your administration has ushered in the current state of affairs, right? Now it was the pandemic and COVID and all that stuff. That was huge, right? So that kind of crippled you from the gate, right? But before that shit, things were going pretty fucking swimmingly over here. You know what I mean? People were making good money doing, and even if you weren't making good money, that money stretched a lot farther than it does now. So it's like, I've gotten a fucking raise at work, and that does not even keep up with the rate of inflation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like it feels like nothing changed, except for my position. You know what I'm saying? And it's
when I hear her say "turn the page," at least in the past, I thought that she was talking about Trump, like let's get away from Trump, like enough of Trump, whatever. And it's funny because I didn't think about what you just said, which is a good point, that she is the page that she's trying to turn. But again, it just comes back to these things of like, what is actually, what does she stand for? And she's talking about, you know, little things that she'll do, but they're not meaningful subjects. She's talking about $25,000 for, a home, but it's
yeah,
like,
that's pure bribery. That's like
yeah,
someone who doesn't know any better. Like, yeah, I'll give you $25,000.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's yeah. I mean, and she doesn't stand for nothing. She stands for whatever is going to keep her in power. And what's going to keep her in power is the interests that she serves, which are not the American people. It's basically, the shadowy entities that control the levers of power in our government, in our economy. You know what I mean? Big, humongous corporate entities, financial entities, and the people that are not on the news. You know what I mean? Like, the people who are not giving the press conferences, She's the talking head for these people, and she's basically reading off of a script. Just like she's been rehearsed for this fucking interview. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. Like this is our agenda. This is how we're gonna sell it, and this is what you have to say. You know what I mean? All right, and then I'm gonna go say it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, continue.
Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade in which we've been burdened with the kind of rhetoric coming from Donald Trump that has been designed and implemented to divide our country and have Americans literally point fingers at each other. Rhetoric and an approach to leadership that suggests that the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down instead of what we all know. The strength of leadership is based on who you lift up. The strength of an American president, which is one who understands that the vast majority of us have more in common than what separates us.
Madam Vice President, more than 70% of people
That is
tell
about
pollsters,
turning the page on rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Brett.
More than
people
70%
are
of people
exhausted.
tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I
No.
both know what I'm
What are you
talking
talking about?
What are you talking about?
What I'm
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
talking about is that over the last decade,
But you're
people
the
have
lever of
become,
power.
but listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump, former defense secretaries, national security advisor, and his vice president. One, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him
Madam
instead
Vice
of
President,
the American people.
if
People
that's the
are tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
It's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a
so
cakewalk.
are they misguided, the 50%? Are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Brett,
Well, I don't understand why they picked that clip. I feel like I don't know.
In that same clip, though, I saw that clip. There's an interesting part where the guy Faulkner is like, "Oh, all of the people that you hired are no longer supporting you," you know? And he's like, "Oh, they're all wrong, and then you too, you're always wrong." That shit was hilarious.
Yo, you know what's ill though? Like I don't know what it is, but you peep how everyone in the audience during that clip when he said that, I've been prosecuted. They all laugh. It's like this dude is just like he has like a certain it factor, like a charisma about him that cannot be overlooked. You know what I mean?
She does
so
not
you're right,
have it.
huh?
She does not have it.
Oh hell no! But the thing is though, is that that accounts for a lot of his
Yeah.
popularity and support. You know what I mean? Just the fact that like when he gives an interview, you wanna like sit and drink a beer with the dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have you seen the flagrant interview with
Yeah.
Andrew Schultz?
Yeah, I saw it.
I mean, like, yo, that dude, he's making people who they're like, Akash, Andrew, everyone on that panel, their job, they're professional comedians, right? And he's making them fucking roll on the floor laughing at like his responses to shit. And he's doing it on purpose. He's like, he's a funny dude. Like he has that ability, which is, important, but at the same time, it's like it definitely gets him really far. You know what I mean? Whereas I don't know, maybe there are holes in his, in his policy, and then he just carries it over with.
But that's always been the case because
100%,
remember George W. Bush, it was the same thing. People voted for him because they wanted to have a beer with him. Against Bob Dole, or who was it? Bob Dole? No.
Yeah, I mean that dude was just dry and boring.
Yeah, no, it was the environment guy. I forget his name. But anyway.
Yeah, okay. All right, continue.
But even Reagan too. It's like all of them.
Yeah. No, Reagan was like the best example. He had like the quip for everything. Yeah.
Sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
He was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you.
That was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes. Let me ask you this, Madam Vice President. You call Donald Trump...
the significance of that.
You call Donald Trump... he's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room. And he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
Now that's another really, really good point. And it's crazy that he's bringing all this stuff up because these are questions that nobody has asked her. She, for years, it's like, oh, Joe Biden is vigorous and he's sharp and he's in charge and he's on top of all the issues and he's making, all these, and it was obvious from mad long when this dude is stumbling up steps and, tripping over himself and making faces like he's pooping his pants or falling asleep or wandering around the stage, not knowing where the fuck he's at, or needing somebody to come grab his hand and walk him off of the fucking, off of the away from the mic. Like, this dude is losing his you know his grasp on reality. Like, the dude is senile. He's getting old. He's declining. You know what I mean? And the whole time, her and numerous other people were covering for that shit. No, he's, when he's alone, when he's in the, in the situation room, he's still got it, and this, that, the other. Meanwhile, in public, in speeches, he's stumbling over his words. He's lost. He's like grasping for names and all this stuff. And she's doing it still to this day. And it's like, yo, why is she even there if the dude is still on top of his shit? He was running for president. The reason why she's even here is because it became so abundantly clear that this dude was in mental decline, right? That they needed to swap him out with her, who never received a single primary vote, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's sitting here talking about how he's still on top of his game. He's still capable. He's still, the dude is not the commander in chief. That's for sure. He's not the one who's dealing with Israel and Ukraine and Russia and China. There's no fucking way that this is the motherfucker who's getting on the phone at 3 a.m. to talk about, pressing issues concerning our interests on the other side of the planet. You know what I mean?
Or maybe he is, and that's the problem.
No, he's not, and that's the problem. Is that we have a president who is not behind the wheel. Somebody else is, and we don't know who the fuck that is. That's the problem. The problem is that, we don't know who is leading the ship, who's piloting the ship right now. We're, for the first time ever, like, as far as I can think, it's like we don't know who is responsible for the decisions that we are making as a country. You know what I mean? On from the executive branch. You know what I mean? We have no idea. It's not Joe Biden. The dude, I promise you, wears a diaper. You know what I mean? Yo, and there's no way. Like, my grandfather, my grandmother both went through this, and I see it the way he walks, that like old shuffle, like, looking like like angels are holding him up from his fucking coat, from his collar. Like, if they let him go, he's gonna fall forward on his face when he tries to walk. You know what I mean? The dude, just like how thin and drawn out he's gotten, everything. You know what I mean? The dude is not with it. And then, like, some days he's with it. Like, I remember, my grandfather, you'd walk into his room. Some days he'd be like right there with you and like having conversations, reminiscing and talking about what's going on here and now. And like then the following day he'd wake up and not know who the fuck you were. You know what I mean? And that's just like, it's not like there's like good days and bad days. You know what I mean? And like you see it the way he carries himself, the way he walks, the way he talks, the way he pronounces words, everything. It's so apparent.
So you're saying that because she's not admitting that she shouldn't be trusted?
Hell no. Yeah, I mean, 100%, because it points to like, she's currently the vice president of the United States under Joe Biden at this moment. You know what I mean? So it's, but it's this is the mind fuck of it. He's still the president. She's still the vice president at this very moment. Meanwhile, he was running for re-election. After the primary, they swapped him out for her, right? With no explanation other than like, yo, he's senile. They didn't do another primary. They didn't put up any other people. They just kind of shooed her in. She went from being the most unpopular vice president in history to all of a sudden, Kamala, like all this fanfare around her, all this hype around her that was being put forth by the media, which is basically like an opinion forming mechanism that represents the government and represents whatever, corporate interest is funding it. Big pharma, the military industrial complex, big finance, the banking system, like all these entities that want the status quo to remain intact. They want this administration, this arm of the government, to stay in power. Now, Trump is not like, in my mind, not like he sees it for what it is. He's going to come in and drain the swamp and do it. No, the dude just is not. He's not a puppet. He's not controlled, so they can't predict what he's going to do, which creates a problem for them in pushing their agenda, because it's not a guarantee that he's going to go for it. You know what I mean? That you can't grease his palm and just have him waving into effect any kind
I
of.
don't know. I don't know if I agree. I think it's just different palms being greased.
No. The problem is that Biden got into power by being a part of this wing of government, right? Kamala is a part of that wing of government, right? Bush, Cheney, Obama, Clinton, they're all a part of the, both Clintons. They're both part of that, neocon, esque type government apparatus, right? They're both, serving the same master. Trump, so there's no illusion. There's like they're not sitting there like, yeah, no, like, no, they know who butters their fucking bread, right? Trump, foolishly or not, he thinks that he's the fucking president. He's like, yo, no, like, I'm the president. You know what I mean? And he's not part of that club. So whether or not he's, just by accident, he could just do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, put the wrong piece of legislation into effect, create, sign the wrong executive order, based on his own free will. He's like, he believes that he's in control of the government, whether that's true or not. You know what I mean? But he believes it. You know what I mean? He thinks so like when Trump's president, you're like, all right, who's making these decisions? Yeah, that dude. That
I don't
good, bad,
know if
or
I
indifferent.
I don't know.
That's my take on it. I just think that he's not part of the same.
Yeah, he's part of a different one. He's part of the Republican one. They're part of the Democrat.
No. He's not either. That's the problem. Because the Republicans and the Democrats are both funded by the same. They have the same donors. They meet with the same fucking lobbyists. They get paid off by the same fucking corporate entities. Trump is not aligned with that same power apparatus. You know what I mean? Now, and that's a threat, because he is uncontrolled and unpredictable. Now, whether or not he's savvy enough to really root out that evil, from the core, I don't think so. But I think that just by him, by happenstance, just by him doing what he feels like is the right thing to do, he's stepping on people's toes. You know what I mean? And that's the problem. That in and of itself is enough for a problem to, spin the media against him. People like Oprah Winfrey and, fucking like your boy, what's his name? Countless people who were cool with him in the past. Now they don't fuck with him. He's fucking racist. He's fucking a bigot. He's a narcissist. He's this, all these people fucked with him in the 90s. All these people fuck with him back in the day. You know what I mean? And now he's like persona non gratis, because they're all part of this same wing of you know of power. You know what I mean? And it has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican. He was a Democrat, and then he just happened to to get on the Republican ticket. But none of the Republicans fucked with him. It was only when he gained the popularity of the people, you know what I mean? The truck drivers and the fucking construction workers and the union guys and the cops and the military. There's only when he got the popularity that they fell in line to kind of, ride his coattails. And it was like self-preservation, because if they go against Trump, then their base is turning on them. You know what I mean? So they all fall in line, like the Marco Rubios and the Ted Cruzes and all these motherfuckers. They all didn't fuck with him. You know what I mean? The Chris Christies and all these guys, they didn't fuck with him. But because he had such a base, and they needed that base to stay in power and to remain relevant, they fell in line. And that's the only Republican he is. Like, it's just, based on that dynamic. He spoke to the Republican base, and the Republican, elected officials to stay in office. They needed to appease that base, so they fell in line with Trump. But the minute they had the opportunity to turn on him, they did. You know what I mean? And that didn't serve them well. You know what I mean? So many of these motherfuckers that were running for president that had promising careers, you don't hear nothing about them, because they took they saw the moment that they could turn on this motherfucker that they hated. They did it, and it bit them in the ass, because this dude didn't go away, and their base saw them for what they were, and they flipped on them. So none of these people are around no more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's wrap this up. Yeah.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out. Even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again, including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate. So that is a fact. That is a fact.
Did she answer the question?
She made me forget about the question.
Yeah, that's her game plan right there.
Madam Vice President, 2 more things. You were asked on 60 Minutes about the biggest threat that the world faces, that the U.S. faces. This is what you said.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands, okay? This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said that. But you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the #1 threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, in the several hours on each occasion that Iran posed a threat to Israel, I was there. Most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself, and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that is,
and
my commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put Iran in check.
The estimates in billions.
It was during Donald Trump's
that
administration that Iran.
I don't understand.
That we had an American.
I don't understand why it's so important to defend Israel. Like, they can defend themselves. I don't get it.
To be honest with you, I don't either. And I think it just goes to, I think it goes to why do we extend ourselves to defend Ukraine?
Anyone.
Right. It's like, and I think it goes to parts of our power structure in this country that is multinational. Their interests do not stop at the American border. Their interests lie globally, and they have their eyes on a bigger piece of the pie than what America can provide. America is just a component of their base of influence, right? And I think that this speaks to the fact that these people, undermine American sovereignty regularly by extending our resources beyond our border to contribute to wars and conflicts that have no existential threat to us directly,
Right.
And I think there are interests that need Israel to remain powerful, fortified, and a dominant, economy in that part of the world, they need Israel's influence in that part of the world. Maybe it has to do with oil. I don't have all the answers to that.
Yeah, maybe oil.
Or just military strength as a let's say you have you're making it's chess, what I mean? So it's we're thinking very insular, like we're thinking about our interests day to day in this country, and it is obviously components that I need to be informed about to make a more educated statement about this. Granted, but it just seems like the interests of the average American are not top priority when you start sending resources and tax dollars around the world
and human lives to die.
100%, right? So that's a huge conflict, and a lot of people, I feel, I believe, want us to be more focused on the issues here that need to be improved.
I mean, there's obviously the old adage that war is profitable. So when you knock down a country, you go in and rebuild it with your economic structure. But I don't think that's even the intention in the case of Russia, Ukraine, and Israel, Palestine. It's more just like that's why it's so hard, is like it's hard to not pick a side but kind of have an opinion. It's like, why are we even there? Like, it doesn't even make any sense. Why are we helping? Other than, there's the humanitarian aspect that you mentioned, but again, it's like we have our own humans to worry about. Like,
100%.
Yes, they're human, but they're not Americans. Like, it's not.
Yeah, and if it was a humanitarian thing solely, then
there'd be plenty of countries
that, and we'd be way more concerned with the women and children
Yeah.
being bombed by Israel. That, that number, so, there's so many more humans being blown apart
Yeah.
by Israel than Israel
You
is
know,
being blown apart by other people.
you
You know
know
what I
what we
mean?
should look. You know what we should look at the book by Ta-Nehisi Coates or whatever, The Message, where he goes to South Carolina and I think Liberia and Palestine.
Yeah, I'm not really up on it. I know of the book. I'm very familiar with the title, and I've heard him give interviews.
Yeah.
I mean, because he speaks out in he speaks out against Israel. I mean,
Yeah.
but bottom line, I think it really comes down to the political power that Israel has in our country. You know,
Yeah, Hollywood and stuff.
or
Financial.
just like the Israel lobby in and of itself.
Yeah.
And this goes back a long way. I don't
Yeah.
think there's a political entity that could run for any office, local or national, that would have a hope if not aligned with the Israel lobbies. You
Yeah.
know?
And I think it's because of money. They have a lot of them have a lot of money.
Yeah, because they're very tied into the banking system,
Yeah.
the entertainment industry, media, and very strategic in the way that they position their resources and their influence.
Yeah.
So that could just be all there is to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I really that's a wormhole. There's so much speculation about that topic, and you have to, and that's also a topic that you have to be very careful talking about.
Yeah.
It's like, and there's this a saying like, if you want to know who controls you, just figure out who you can't talk about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's truth to that. There's certain groups of people that you cannot criticize, and and it doesn't come down to whether they're right, wrong, or whatever. It just comes down to their influence and their ability to silence you or to affect your livelihood and your ability to make it in the world. You know what I mean? And if you speak out against Israel at your job, you better look out. If you speak out about trans issues or
Which is crazy because how is there free speech? I don't get it. There's no free
that's the
speech.
thing. Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's like, she's talking about, he's threatening to turn the American military on American citizens and all this other shit. And I don't know what she's referring to exactly. A lot of what he says is off the cuff. He doesn't use teleprompters, and it's easy to spin what he says. Right? Donald Trump, I'm talking about,
Yeah.
but her administration and her, the wing of the branches of power that she represents are the ones that are really censoring people. When you have Elon Musk, who is an advocate for free speech to the point where he's going to put up huge amounts of capital to buy Twitter, so that, to end the censorship. And you have the Twitter files that came out, another topic that we should talk about, where it exposes like the collusion between media corporate, social media companies and the government to silence people talking about COVID, talking about all types of issues. The censorship on YouTube itself, when you try to bring up certain issues and your videos get flagged for it, or you say certain words, like just saying saying COVID, right? And I think we have like what, 3 subscribers, so I don't think it's going to affect us too much at this point. But saying words like that can get your video flagged. You know what I mean? Saying words about smortion or about about self deletion, or all this stuff can get
Yeah.
your channel flagged and you get demonetized. And so it's a
But
soft.
that's not only YouTube. That's also TikTok,
Yeah. No,
which
but
is Chinese owned.
right, but when did TikTok come under fire and take heat? Where they like they had to sell to an American interest. It was when they started putting up all that footage of Palestinians, being bombed by Israel. That's
No, I
when.
don't know. I think the main argument was that the 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 algorithm lets them listen in on your phone even when TikTok is not being used.
Right. Yeah. But like Donald Trump, it's an uncontrolled entity, and they need control over over anything that's going to disseminate information at that broad a scale needs
Yeah.
to be controlled. You know what I mean? Anything that's going to have that much power needs to be controlled. That much power over people's opinions and ideas needs to be controlled. Needs to be, in the pocket of the powers that be. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
So
and
Twitter
if
is
you
no
fall outside of that, you are subject to serious scrutiny and and it's going to become you're going to come under the crosshairs.
so
you're going to fall in the crosshairs eventually if you
so
have
by
that much influence.
so X bypasses that. You can say
Yeah,
anything you
because
want,
because
even
there's
though it's in America.
well, yeah, but meanwhile, Elon Musk has taken a huge, hit on his reputation. He's basically been painted as, you know, he's been put under the same, been viewed in the same light as Donald Trump, which is partly why I think he's gravitated so heavily towards Donald Trump, because
But
like any single father with a wicked baby mother, you see certain tactics playing out, and you see how people, manipulate and spin narratives that are not accurate, and you immediately start looking twice like, yeah, right, well, all these people that I was told to abhor, you know you
so
know
so because he put up the money and he is not afraid of losing money in the free speech battle, he's
yeah,
not controllable. That's it.
I
Like
mean, I don't
meaning
know.
that why is that the only free speech platform? Because he's funding it, basically, right?
Yeah, and he's refusing to cooperate
Right.
with
Okay.
government, kind of subpoenas for, like,
Right.
all right, we want to know, so, but the Twitter files lays it all out, because after he acquired the company, they released a
Yeah, I
bunch of
remember.
you heard about that, right?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So it lays out, basically exactly how the government was working
Right.
with social media corporations. That includes Facebook, and
Yeah.
and Twitter at the time, and all of them, to
Yeah.
control the message surrounding COVID, surrounding Israel, surrounding, you know all these issues, and there was active censorship going on,
Yeah.
of American citizens. And the argument was like, all right, these are private companies, private, like, they publish what they want to publish because it's a private company. It's
But
not
how
public.
going back to my original question, how is there any censorship if there's also free speech? The two can't live together, right?
Yeah, but there's no free speech. It's an idea. You know what I mean? It's not real. You know what I mean?
But
We
isn't
don't
that the
live.
First Amendment?
No, yeah, 100%. You know what I mean? 100%. But we're not there. You know what I mean? We're not
Okay.
there.
Just to
You know.
clarify, because I don't really know. Anyway, let's
Yeah.
get back to it.
All right.
American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches, not to mention
Madam
how
Vice
Donald
President,
Trump has,
all of this money
has treated
that
and
has
talked
gone
about
in the past
America's
few
military
years,
and military service people,
critics
calling them
say that it goes to
suckers and
Hezbollah,
losers,
Hamas,
has diminished
and
the
Houthis. We're talking
significance.
over each other. I
Well,
apologize.
I
you're not.
wish, I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the.
You're filibustering. There's no
Yeah,
conversation. Just keep
but
rattling
also,
on.
also, I really hate that she keeps bringing up Trump. Like, stand on your own
Yeah,
merit. Like,
for real.
it's crazy.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I agree with you.
Like, it's kind of like I forget the metaphor, but it's like I don't know. It's just, you know, like, if you're so good, show us and don't tell us, basically, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree with you.
The facts, which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election, and the contrast is important.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering what should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a
And there
decision
are
that
critics
they
who
feel.
look at what the administration did and say and think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things.
There's more to say. I have much more to say.
There are a lot of
actually.
things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and
Yes.
that's why we
I
invited
invite
you
everyone
here.
to go to kamalaharris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do
And that's why
intend
we
to do to
invited you
strengthen our
here,
economy,
to see where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
support America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
And
they're giving me a hard rap
Well,
here.
I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.